kind of already done introductions. I think we should start with, you've got a sizzle reel, if you will, a reel that gives everybody a little bit of insight into what you guys did. So if we can start with that, that'd be great.
Sounds great. Here live from Las Vegas, Noah Eagle, Allie Clifton. This is a little bit of a different view than you're generally accustomed to. Alexis is going to explain exactly what you're seeing at home.
Yeah, Noah, like you said, it is different, and that's because we're shooting it entirely on smartphones. Yeah, I said smartphones.
Rui Hachimura, who the Wizards have tons of hopes for moving forward. McCall hits a three from Possessionix. Swing pass, 3-ball from the corners, up and good. He floats it inside, and Travis makes it look easy. My favorite part about this might be the score bug that we have. Check, it looks like an actual phone, and the shot clock is like the battery dwindling down.
You can kind of do everything from your phone, from your computer, from your laptop, so you knew it was a matter of time before something like this was going to happen.
The cut, nice pass, sticks with it. Inside, Troy Brown Jr. from the Wizards. This is pretty epic. It is 2019, but I know you're pretty amazed with the fact that we are literally doing this interview, shooting this game via the smartphone. What is about Summer League that you love?
Just being able to be home and be a hometown native and just represent the city in the right way, you know, it's definitely big for me, and it's a humbling experience.
I love the experience meeting the players. It's really cool.
The Wizards hold off a long run by the Atlanta Hawks to emerge victorious and improve to 2-2.
Wizards narrowly get that win. How did you guys pull it off?
Just bringing more energy.
Congratulations on the win. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Final score, 76-71, Washington over Atlanta.
Okay, so let's start with Paul, you and Steve. So what was the reasoning behind trying something like this? How did this idea come up in the first place to do a game or to cover an entire game using smartphones? Where did that come from?
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
I think it's a few things. First off, the NBA, we pride ourselves next-gen fan base. We've really excelled on the social and digital stratosphere over the course of the last 12, 15 years. So appealing to a different audience. I think access is another thing that we pride ourselves on. We're a league that's really marketed by our players. Anything we can do to get closer to the floor, get closer to our players, just continue along that path. And then lastly, I think we've seen sort of a lot of progress in the UGC world more recently. You turn on to Instagram and you're going to see a fan with a smartphone taking courtside video that are getting millions of views. This has especially come up in the last couple years. With all the technology we have at our disposal, with all the access we have, how can we tap into that? How can we not be beat by what's going on Instagram and really take that to a live broadcast? I think that was really the genesis of trying to pursue this, and I think this is really more of a long-term vision. And we had an opportunity at Summer League to really make a short-term splash.
Steve?
Yeah, so the idea was precisely all of that, and to say, well, there's hundreds of millions of dollars of research being put into these cameras and these microphones on these phones. So we started out with the idea, well, we'll incorporate some video from cell phones into a telecast at the Summer League, and then we just flipped it on its head and said, why don't we go 100%? Why don't we make the entire telecast from the cell phone? And in fact, everything you saw in that clip, there were no microphones other than the microphones on the cameras. There were no video except for video from those cameras, from those Samsung cameras. And then fortunately, we called our partner over here, AT&T.
So I was just going to say, so Dave, then he called you and said, what?
They said, let's do a game using cell phones as cameras. And our runway was short. We only had about 7 weeks from the first call to the game. And fortunately, we had 3 partners. Ericsson, who does our 5G as a service platform. Samsung was an obvious partner of AT&T. and live view, we had all those 3 partners in our stable. We just hadn't used them in this way. So the opportunity came about, and we were able to assemble the team very fast.
So as you guys were putting this entire production together, were there any, from a technology side, were there any surprises? I assume that there would be.
There's always surprises, especially when you have a short runway. You know, when we got there, we had challenges on, you know, where we're going to mount antennas, how do we do the cabling back. This was at, you know, the Thomas and Mack Arena at UNLV. This was a place that doesn't have the type of connectivity that a regular venue has. So there were challenges in putting it up. There was, you know, we put it up on July 2nd and 3rd just before we took holiday, and then came back the following Monday and operationalized it to get it going. So it was, the biggest challenge was time. Everything else we could overcome with imagination and, you know, a little bit of genius.
So when this project came to you, Dave, from an AT&T standpoint, was this a welcome challenge? Are there any boxes from an AT&T side in the 5G space that this checked for you guys?
This was a welcome opportunity. Like I said, we had all of our partners. We had our global video service installed at the Thomas and Mack already, so we used that as well. It was just putting the pieces together, so you know, it was a great opportunity to take part of.
So back to Paul. Paul, as you were putting this together and understanding the technology limitations and what you can do, from an NBA standpoint in terms of operations, how does that change things? I know you work with the broadcasters, and we make a lot of requests to put obviously large bulky cameras in places where you would rather not, that potentially impact player safety and things of that sort. What was your outlook as this project was coming together?
I think a lot of it is R&D, and Chris, I think, as you know, as we've sort of treaded into these waters on the NBA TV side, implementing a smartphone within live broadcast coverage of the Tuesday original productions, you know, getting some feedback from players, from coaches, from PR people, just, you know, what level of access can we get? I think the reality is there's to your point, Chris, there's something way less intimidating about a big handheld camera with a wide lens than a smartphone. I think we've seen some of our best access moments through smartphones. There's just a level of comfortability. I think there's an ease of use and familiarity that is really kind of opened some doors and opened some eyes. And you know, the feedback that we've gotten from pretty much everyone across the board has been very positive. So I think there's a lot more to explore there.
Now, before I ask the next question, there is some video. I think there's another clip that shows some of the production itself. That if we're just go ahead and roll it while we talk over it. And Steve, as you looked at the technology, as you look at some of the, from a broadcasting standpoint, some of the objectives, how did you come together with the actual production plan in terms of working with a production entity or production group to bring the rest of this to life?
Great. So first of all, I got to mention another MVP besides Dave Macdonald, Jeff Curtin, the producer-director for the Portland Trailblazers, was the director on this, and he just did a spectacular job. And what we really decided we wanted to do is get the cameras in the right place so that people could actually feel very close to the field of play and experience the game as if they were looking through their own cell phone, right? I mean, let's face it, we experience a lot of reality through our cell phones with our families and at other events. And we were really surprised to find, you know, number one, how good the images were, and number two, how good the audio was, because the audio mixer literally just took all the audio it took the audio from the 6 cell phones, put it into a mixer, and that's what he mixed. So, for me, it kind of points to a future of, you know, obviously we're not replacing broadcast cameras in venues, right? I mean, a 70-to-1 lens, you know, in the hands of an artist, of a professional camera person, is a unique tool for telling stories and making wonderful pictures. But on the edges, things like, you know, courtside reporters, why can't the courtside reporter do a selfie? You know, if the 5G's there it's reliable, and you get that kind of picture quality that you can put up against your pictures, right? Why, as Paul was saying, why can't you get closer, get off the court? Why can't you pop a quick interview into your telecast, you know, with an agent or with an assistant coach or an assistant general manager in the stands or a celebrity in the stands? Why can't you do what really is what I consider social, right? Social in our telecast should be getting people into the building and letting them meet the people that are in the building, you know, not popping up Twitter pages, right? I mean, that's what I think we can do with the cell phones. That's completely unique.
So speaking of social, so Paul, you and I talked about it. You said you were in a meeting as this was coming together, and social was one of the topics. How did social, as Steve is talking about it, how did that correlate to this entire project starting to come to be, and then eventually wind up in the hands of Dave and his team to actually execute?
I mean, this was born out of a meeting, I want to say in January of last year, so about a year ago, where there was a courtside video of Anthony Davis, I think, hitting a game-winning shot, something along those lines, and just this gorgeous view from someone literally sitting courtside. And since then, you see these come up every couple weeks. I think everyone has probably seen the Kawhi Leonard version of it, the Damian Lillard version of it. It's just stunning how far the technology has come, that this is broadcast quality images, and really, how can we tap into that? I think to Steve's other point, I mean, there's a lot of neat efficiencies here, just in, you know, Alexis Morgan, who was a reporter in that, I think we have a clip, just kind of moving her around. We did one stunt where we kind of took over the arena during the timeout, and she was literally holding a smartphone, and we had a trick dunker come over and jump over her. He didn't actually make the dunk, he missed it twice, but the footage was fantastic. You're getting the selfie image of Alexis, like, kind of shaking as he's about to potentially hit her head.
Yeah, I think we have that footage. Can we can just show that for everybody for perspective.
Yeah, look at me. I'm traveling around Tamas and Mac on the AT&T 5G wireless network. It's so great to have this handheld smartphone because I can just talk to anybody I want. And look at who I'm talking to. I should get a prize if I get all these names right, by the way. So we've got Michael, Jake, Trevor, John, and Tommy. Did I get all of them right?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Well, what brings you to Summer League? Where are you from?
We're from Thousand Oaks, California, a little north of LA.
Game-changing that you're talking about as far as access?
Yeah, I mean, this, to Steve's point, just about being more social. I mean, we looked at this as an opportunity to bring fans in, the exact consumers that we're trying to appeal to within the broadcast. So we did try different elements like this, and we got very good feedback with this as well.
So Dave, bringing this to life, you know, if I'm looking at a 5G project and somebody says that, hey, we need to do this, we need to put together a 5G cell phone broadcast, what does that mean to your team in terms of the time it takes, the infrastructure built? Because in my mind, I feel like I see more time, I see more fiber, I see more everything. So what does that mean for your team as you come in and approach something like this?
Well, if we were to do this again, you know, having done it once and know the pieces and components to pull in, that's great. You know, we have our GVS service wired into almost every venue already, so that gives us a constant path to get out of the venue. More time would be nice, but also, you know, I learned a lot doing this for the first time. You know, I learned a lot of things like, you know, IFB and tally lights and return video and all of these things that we could do to make it even better for the cameraman, simpler and more effective to produce shots and, you know, do a game like this.
Now, I should mention that the LiveView app has a channel of talkback in it. So we are using the same channel for both for camera direction and for IFB. So it's built into the app.
Mm-hmm. And so and understandably so, the LiveView partnership and putting that together was, I assume, it seemed very successful. The production.
It was the right partner to choose. Yes.
Excellent. So, with that being said, you talked about the venue being connected. Right, we're hearing more and more about venues that are connected with 5G. Mm-hmm. And is there an official strategy that says, I mean, obviously you want to be first to market for sure, but then what goes behind that? And what's the reason behind, or what do you all see as the big reason for having the 5G in there?
Sure. So it's really about, creating immersive fan interactions, whether it be social and everything. That's on one hand. How do we do that? How do we make the whole experience for the fan better? The other part of it is on operational efficiencies, doing things different. When you looked at, a cell phone here as a camera, there was a certain freedom about that to go wherever you wanted to do. So we're changing a paradigm a bit of how we could do these things with different shots that match up to a whole different demographic. So there's the business side of it and there's the fan side of it as we look to go to venues.
Fantastic. Well, as we're winding down the last couple of minutes, I just want to get everybody's thoughts on next steps. Now that you've done this game, and you already pointed out that you've learned a tremendous amount that we can use to help enhance future games when we look to try to do something like this again. But beyond that, sort of what are next steps from AT&T's standpoint in your mind, either one or both? What are the next steps? And we'll start, Dave, with you.
So there's a couple of things that are happening. One, we're beginning to turn up our nationwide 5G network, which would mean that the consumer adoption of 5G will come up stronger. And secondly, we have a plan to put 5G into a number of venues in 2020. So we'll be utilizing that to do, this type of project again and again for different sports.
Fantastic. Steve?
I think as arenas are wired for 5G, you're going to have fans in great seats, as Paul was indicating, because fans are uniquely close to the NBA field of play, with great video that shoot great shots that we're going to want to use on air. The question is how we're going to collect them now. Because right now, if you record video in a venue with the LTE or whatever access you have, you're reluctant to hit send because your phone will probably just sit there spinning, right? But with these 5G networks, you're going to hit send and it's going to go out right away. So it's going to, and Adam Silver actually talked about this. It's not that we want to stop anybody from recording and sending video, right? Or we just want them to participate somehow in the telecast. So we're going to have to figure out how to collect that and how to potentially get it into the telecast, because they're going to provide some unique, really cool angles, that we just don't have.
Paul?
I think All-Star is going to present some really exciting possibilities. I hope we can bring this back to Las Vegas again for Summer League, but I think, as we know, those aren't necessarily the bulk of our broadcast. So right. As AT&T continues to set up in different buildings, I think that's something we really want to look into is, for your average NBA game telecast, once we're outfitted in a lot of buildings, what can we really do? And the R&D in that process has really begun now. And again, we've had very positive feedback, so I think we're really excited about the possibilities.
Oh, well, thank you. And I know there's all kinds of talk about 5G and what sports betting is also going to bring about, but that's a whole untapped area that we have yet to explore. So I think looking at it as an add-on to productions, I think is fantastic. And gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. Everybody, please give these guys a hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.